In those first fragile moments of dawn, Africa's pale sky was still asleep. As the mist slowly touched the ground at the edge of Lake Tsavo, even the birds were silent. Only a few elephants, sunk up to their bodies in mud, seemed to be gazing at the reflection of the water from afar. But that morning, something was coming not from the sky, but from beneath the earth. A kind of emptiness, a lack. Tomo noticed it immediately. Without taking his binoculars from his eyes, he asked, "Where's the youngest?" His hand trembled. Elias did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the empty space behind the herd. It had been there just minutes ago. The youngest calf had been leaning against its mother's leg. Now it was gone. At that very moment, there was a sound, indescribable. It was like a whisper torn from the very heart of nature. Not a bird's cry, not a jackal's howl. Suppressed, restrained, yet instinctively familiar. The terrifying cry for help of a baby elephant, as if it were drowning. Tomo sprang into action without hesitation. As he plunged into the bushes, the mist rising from the lake shore brushed against his body, and dry branches crackled under his feet. Elias watched him, but his eyes were focused not on the gun, but on the panic in Tomo's heart. Rangers have seen many things, but this was something else, and then, the image came into view. An image that would shake any person familiar with nature to their core. A massive, old male lion crawling toward the cracked mud at the lake's edge. Alone. But he wasn't alone. In his mouth was a baby elephant, still alive, its legs trembling, its trunk hanging limply to the sides, but alive. The lion was dragging it, yes. But it wasn't attacking. There was no blood. Not even a tooth mark was visible. Elias reached for his gun. Tomo raised his hand. "Stop. Wait. This isn't a hunt." Both of them froze. They just watched. The lion paused for a moment, lifting its head. Its gaze locked directly onto Tomo's eyes. In that moment, time stood still. The lion's eyes weren't those of a hunter. They weren't hungry. They weren't even wild. They were just lost. Tired. And they carried a deep loneliness. They were so human that Elias had to whisper, "This isn't normal. This is something else." This moment by the lake shattered the known rules of the wild. The scene of a lion dragging a baby elephant might have been a headline that would capture the attention of millions online. But the truth here was quieter, darker, and far more poignant. Because this lion wasn't there to do something, it was there because it couldn't do something. And that morning, on the parched lands of Africa, something was changing irrevocably, and the real question remained unanswered. Why hadn't this old lion killed the baby elephant, and what was he planning to do? As the old lion walked slowly through the mud, he was dragging not only a tiny elephant calf behind him, but also a secret. Tomo and Elias couldn't take their eyes off him. The guns were still in place, but the feeling rising within them was neither threat nor fear. There was a kind of intuition, an indescribable yet palpable sense of strangeness in that scene. The question, why didn't the lion kill the baby elephant, was now taking on a more complex form. Because the lion, without averting his gaze, deliberately and intentionally disappeared into the tall grass beside the lake. His steps were slow but steady. And the strangest thing was, he was still alone. No female lions, no hunting pack. This one was, alone. That night, by the campfire, the wind blew differently. Tomo didn't say a word, but Elias had to speak. "This isn't normal," he said. "Lions don't hunt when they're this old. Especially not an elephant." While it's still alive, he couldn't finish the sentence. Because at that moment, the sound of quiet, muffled footsteps approaching from outside the camp was heard. No, it wasn't a lion. This time it was an old man. His skin was like a crust dried by the wind, and the lines on his face were as deep as the years. He was one of the natives of Tsavo. He didn't speak. He just sat down on the ground. And he began to tell his story. "There used to be a legend here," he said in a low voice. "A lion. They called him Nkamba. His pride had died in the drought. He was left alone. He didn't roar. He didn't hunt. Every year, he would take a baby elephant, but he didn't eat it. He would dig the ground by the lake, bury it silently. Each elephant was laid to rest in a nest corresponding to its own cub. We forgot this story. But the earth doesn't forget." Tomo's heart sank. Was this old lion, the echo of that old story? The next day at dawn, they returned to the lake without using the motor. Only their footsteps and breaths could be heard. When they reached the lake shore, they couldn't believe what they saw. Because the old lion was still there. But this time he wasn't alone. Under the tall grass, another creature lay, thin, weak, almost skeletal. A lion cub. Tiny. It was struggling to breathe. It was clearly starving. Its bones were visible beneath its skin. And beside it, the elephant calf, still alive. It hadn't been harmed, and in that moment, everything fell into place. The lion had kidnapped the elephant calf but hadn't killed it. Because it couldn't. Because it had taken it to save its own cub, but it couldn't. A father at odds with his instincts, not a hungry hunter, but a helpless father. Tomo's eyes filled with tears. Elias whispered, "It couldn't do it. Maybe it was too late. Maybe it loved too much. But nature doesn't settle for love." Everything was just beginning. Because as the sun rose, other shadows emerged from the mist. A new threat. A new rule violation. Young lions. Hungry, aggressive, cast out of their prides, and wandering like shadows, filled with loneliness. They were all silent. Their eyes were gleaming. And they had noticed the cub. Weak, defenseless, alone. And the old lion noticed this. He straightened his body. His legs were trembling. But his eyes, those eyes, were burning like fire. Tomo reached for the rifle. Elias shook his head. "If we shoot, they'll all go mad. Let it be, give it a chance." And the lion walked. Slowly, tired but determined. He stepped in front of the young male lions. He shielded the cub. They locked eyes. There were no words, but their bodies spoke. "This is mine. That is my cub. And I am here." Then one lunged. Claws in the air, roar in the throat, dust everywhere. Tomo's heart leapt from his chest. The lake shore transformed from a grave silence into a wild storm. Claws scratched. Teeth clashed. The old lion, outnumbered, weakened, but with a clear purpose, entered the battle. Every blow was to protect his son. Not for his own survival. Every scream was a father's oath, and then, the cub escaped. With trembling steps, he ran toward Tomo. Elias opened his arms. He held him. He embraced him. "He brought you to us," Tomo said in a hoarse voice. "On purpose." But even then, it wasn't over. Suddenly, another sound came from the forest. Heavy, deep, familiar. The elephant herd was returning. The mother elephant was advancing, shaking the ground with her body. And she saw the calf. She wanted to take it back. But the lion was still there. And for the first time, everyone stopped at the same time. The lion didn't back down. But he didn't attack either. He just stood there. His eyes on the ground. His mane stained with blood. His breath heavy. But standing tall, and at that moment, the most unexpected thing happened. Instead of going to his mother, the baby elephant turned to the lion cub. He approached it. And stretched his trunk toward its weak neck. He touched it. Gently. As if to say, "I understand you." Then it turned back to its mother. The elephant matriarch watched everything. But she did not attack. She just bowed her head. Perhaps out of respect. Perhaps out of understanding. Perhaps, because a mother can feel the pain of another mother. That night, rain fell on Tsavo. It wasn't fast or heavy, but it was steady. The earth stretched out like a tongue thirsty for water. Everyone at the camp by the lake fell silent. Tomo sat quietly with the lion cub wrapped in a blanket in his arms. Even the crackling of the fire seemed too loud. Because what happened that day was not just an event, it had stirred something within everyone who witnessed it. Millions of people might click on the story titled "Lion Dragging Baby Elephant," but the truth lay far beyond those images. Because some stories are lived, not told. At dawn, the elephant herd descended to the lake shore once more. This time, they were much more cautious. The lake shore was where that unforgettable encounter would take place once more. Tomo released the lion cub. Weak but standing, it took steps toward the herd. The matriarch, the leader of the herd, stepped forward. Her massive body seemed to touch the sky. Tension was palpable. But the lion cub did not fear. And the little elephant took a step forward. When the two stood side by side, another silence fell. Everyone watched. And the elephant's trunk gently touched the lion's forehead. No warning, no threat. Just recognition. In that moment, the term animal compassion became a real image. Compassion had a language. And the sound of that language was silence, but that silence was broken by a movement. As the elephant calf turned back, it glanced back for a moment. It looked at a point. Into the void. As if searching for someone. And yes, there it was. The old lion. far away, at the edge of the trees. Alone. Wounded. But still standing. It said nothing. It did not approach. It simply watched. Its calf. Silently. Proudly, and at that moment, the tables turned. Another silhouette emerged from behind the trees. A human. Someone carrying a weapon. A hunter, someone from outside the camp. A stranger. A professional tracker. His eyes were fixed on the old lion. The rifle on his shoulder was ready. He was taking aim. Tsavo was about to shout. But Elias stopped him. We're too late. No gunshot was heard. But smoke rose. The lion's spot was empty. When they arrived, they found only a few drops of blood and a paw print left on the ground. The old lion was gone. But where, no one knew. Some still say it walked north. Others say it died. But Tsavo doesn't believe it. Because some creatures don't die. They just become legends. Now a question for you, can a lion forgive an elephant for protecting its cub? Can an elephant touch the cub of a killer? And where are we in this forest? Write what you think in the comments. Maybe this story is over. Maybe it's just turned into another beginning. But don't forget one thing, sometimes mercy leaves a bigger mark than savagery. And sometimes, a silently watched gaze tells more than a century-old scream.